And good day. Well, we now have both the IL-40P and the Messerschmitt P.1102B. And the inevitable question came to our minds, which is the better aircraft? And so we have put together four separate flights, two of each, and split them up. So IL-40P and then the 1101B, or 1102B, excuse me. And just the way things broke out, the IL-40P won both of its engagements. The Messerschmitt 1102B lost both of its engagements. That doesn't mean much, folks. A sample size of two doesn't mean anything. But it does let us get some impressions of the aircraft. And one of the things that comes up is the efficiency of ground attack, because the more time you spend over a target, the better chance of being blasted out of the sky you have. And the more points you collect, because the minute it's on your side, you've got a base under your control, you're getting points. The other side is not. And these are very dissimilar aircraft in the way that they're built. One of the things that you will quickly notice is that this aircraft is 1,000 pounds, or has 1,000 more hit points, I should say. And you're talking about one that reached prototype stage and one that never got off the runway, literally never got off the drawing board. I did check on that, by the way. The 1102B was nothing more than a paper study. Not that they weren't willing to look at it, but neither engine was ready, and by the time it was ready to even start thinking about producing, the war was over, which was the case in many late war German projects. The IL-40 and IL-40P both were actually built, and the Soviets came to the not unreasonable conclusion: look, if you get into a major war and you're going to take out, you're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the enemy, the NATO allies and the United States GDP was 5 times, maybe 10 times the size of the entire Russian economy and the entire Warsaw Pact. Well, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that you don't win long wars like that. Okay, you can't win long wars like that. And people tell you, so forth and so on, but, our side's got this, and no. If you get in a long protracted war, go ask the American Confederate States how well that works out. In 5 years, they ended up with an absolutely devastated economy. Go ask the Germans how well World War II worked out for them. When the United States and Russia collectively put just about 100,000 medium tanks in the field. Well, it doesn't work out well. Can't work out well. All right, so from that standpoint, yeah, they're right. You either won quickly or you mailed it in and said, I give up. All right. And you can't imagine the Soviet Union following it with a good result, as we would find out in 1990. Nobody involved in that was willing to go through that. So you choose tactical bombers, and that's what happened to this aircraft. Okay. They said, yeah, that's nice, but I deliver one tactical bomb, and it's worth, building 400 of these and sending them off in one mass group. Like, you could really make that happen, right? So it makes sense. So neither, we're talking about one prototype, a couple of runway prototype, 5 prototype aircraft, and one that never got off paper. You have no idea what a paper project is. So from a historical standpoint, you can't even compare them with anything like real numbers. Well, we're left to how they perform in the game then. All right, well, how did they perform in the game then? Well, it's a bit like a Mack truck and a no bobtail truck. Okay, this is a tank, a flying tank, and it does many wonderful things. But some things that it doesn't do very well is turn. All right, you got just shy of a 20-second turn time. Well, that's nice. So what does a 20-second turn time give me? Well, not a whole heck of a lot. So it doesn't maneuver nearly as well as its competitor here, which is the 1102. What it does, however, have is one hell of a alpha strike. You can very carefully drop bombs wherever you want them. And then you can use your rockets to take out a third site. And usually most of your on most of your bases, you've got at least 2 or 3 medium sights on there. Well, this one is already equipped to take out 2 of them, and very quickly. Okay, well, that's kind of nice. And so from a pure alpha strike, you know, how much can you lay down very quickly and get the target? The IL-40 is much better at that. IL-40P, I should say. And part of it is due to the rocket loads. It carries 2 1,100-pound weapons, and that's going to match up exactly with the 4 550-pound weapons that the Messerschmitt product has. So there's nothing to be gained there, and on top of which, the Messerschmitt is going to load its bombs twice as quickly, or 2/3 of the time, and 2/3 of the time that the IL-40 does. All right. But on top of that, you've got 8 rockets, and they are whopping big rockets. And if you watch that last video, 2 rockets took out half of a mining plant, medium target, and then I could finish off the rest with guns. And if I needed to, I could have done the same thing over and over again. So they're very powerful rockets. And in the previous aircraft, you had to launch 3, 4 to get the same effect that you get out of 2. If it's a real hard target, you fire 3, but it will usually do it. So now we have the Messerschmitt 1102B, which does a great job. But instead of 2,800 points, you're looking at 1,800 points. It's a much more fragile aircraft. Can't take nearly as much damage. Now, it's hard to say that with a straight face. Anything having an 1,800 point hit load is not being, as being fragile, because it's not. It can absorb quite a bit of punishment. But, and there is a mitigating factor I have not discussed, and that's guns here. The guns on this thing are ferocious. Absolutely ferocious. All right, they will hurt anything. And I don't mean maybe. Now here you see I dropped my one bomb a little late, and I just turned the guns on it. That got the job done. I do a straight line run, and everything in this thing's way goes down. And what's the difference? The 1102 is giving you 1,400 DPS. And a 430 millimeter revolver cannon in this thing, or 6,000 rounds per minute. That's not so much represented here. But to give you an idea, the vaunted A10 gives you about 6,000 rounds per minute of 30 millimeter cannon fire. Now it does it with a bigger round. Alright, when it comes to tearing down other aircraft though, nothing really. The IL-40P does a good job, but this does a much better job. And a lot of it comes down to it's much more nimble. It is a much better anti-aircraft platform than the IL-40P. Not that I can't do it. You guys have watched too many of my videos to know that you can't do it. You can do it. Just not as effective at it. This thing is a horror. And it's because of the gun and the maneuverability of the aircraft. And so I will quite often use it against anything stupid enough to get in its way. So you really have to respect the front end. And it's got a back end. Though of the two, I'm going to say because of the turret in the back, the IL-40P actually has the advantage there. Does a little more damage. It's got a little longer reach. And it's got a nicer arc to it. But it's not an overwhelming advantage. About 10%. So anything that gets in this thing's front nose is in trouble, and you're not in that much better shape when you get on its tail. And it leads to some unusual tactics. Because when somebody goes zooming by me, my first impulse on this is not to turn around, it's to go right to my tail gun and finish up any damage that I've done. You don't outturn me, sure. But if you zoom back behind my aircraft, you can find out the hard way that I'm perfectly okay with that. Alright, so we got all of this going on, and I'm contemplating this. Which aircraft do I like better? Well, a lot of it comes down to the range between the land targets. And the thought might be, well, what difference will that make? Well, when I've expended my entire bomb and rocket load, if I expend them all very quickly, I have to wait 90 seconds for a reload. Well, what difference does that make to me if the targets are more than 90 seconds apart? None. But if they're closer than that, like on this map, it could really make a difference. And not a minor one. That means the difference between dropping another 2,000 pounds of ordnance and you got that gun. In a fighter-rich environment, I tend to like the 1102 better than I do the IL-40P. But in a hard target scenario, I prefer the IL-40P because of the rockets. The guns aren't quite as good, but you know, nobody's going to sneeze at 1,000 DPS. That's an XF-90. And they're getting, that's some ferocious firepower in itself, but it's 40% better with this thing. There's nothing I'm not willing to stick the nose on and say it's not going to last very long, because it's not. But you're telling me, you know, so to me, and we'll discuss this, I mean, I've got a long play time, and then I'll eventually give this over to music and let you have the rest of it and just watch, and you can agree or disagree with my conclusions. But to me, this is very much more play style than this is one having a massive advantage over the other. I am not in any way afraid to go after a target with this aircraft. It is a great aircraft. Now, a partner of mine has got his just about 4 or 5 hours before I got mine. Says that he likes this because the gun is better. Now, we both have IL-40Ps. Is it going to make a huge amount of difference? No, I don't think so.
We cannot support you any longer. The storm is too heavy.
I mean, the aircraft is very much capable of, either aircraft is very much capable of getting the job done. I happen to prefer the IL-40 for its ground attack capabilities, but I much prefer this when I'm dealing with guys like this fellow, because it can turn around very quickly and get out of rocket range if you see him coming in time. Unfortunately, I didn't realize what was behind me by the time he launched his rockets. And I read an article from a British night fighter pilot, and what he had to say, they had told him during the battle, after the Battle of Britain, they were still sending night fighters over Berlin, more in harassment raids than they were in any real mass attacks anymore, was they had put bombs on the Focke-Wulf 190, and he was flying, it wasn't a Mosquito yet, it was a bill fighter equipped with a cannon and a radar. And he finally, really got to thinking about it, and this is a pilot in war, and he said, the more I thought about it, the more I realized my job wasn't dogfighting these Focke-Wulf 190s. I'm not going to dogfight them. Our job here is more quiet murder. And that's exactly how I described it. We're assassins in the dark. We slip up behind somebody and we just blast them for all we're worth. And that's very much true here, too. It's not the aircraft you see that gets you most times. It's the aircraft you don't see. And these aircraft, the biggest danger to you is when there are first indications when you're getting, your rear gun goes off and somebody's crawling in range. If somebody's coming up and I can level out and make sure that everything's okay with the aircraft and go back and wait for them, they're in a lot of trouble. If they shoot me down, they're going to be missing one heck of a lot of hit points. Either of the aircraft. Now this one is equipped, the crews are not quite equal in either aircraft. I will tell you that the IL-40P I've had longer, it's specialized. It's got the better crew by a little bit. Not a huge amount, but a little bit. And, I wouldn't count on the fact that I got defeated in the 1102 and I won in the IL-40 every time I came into it. It's, again, a better crew. It's a specialized aircraft. And the variables of being on different maps, the variables of different opposition, and what the loadout from Matchmaker is, and what they've done with the robots, I've got no way to tell you. All right, so that throws enough murk in there that I can't run the same aircraft over the same map and say, yeah, this is better by X%. And if there's somebody out there that really can do that job, I want to shake your hand, because you're going to spend an awful lot of time gathering that data, compiling what your opposition is, and getting on the same maps, and having a recorder on and getting all the data. That's a little more work than I particularly want to do. All right. But this is a spectacularly good aircraft. And the thing that comes up that doesn't get mentioned is the amount of fun that you have while flying them. And I love flying these aircraft. You've seen all the videos that I've put together, the IL-40, the IL-40P. Well, that's not an accident. I love flying those aircraft. And for those of you who weren't here on the early days of my channel, And I realized that this is what I wanted to do. The first video on there, I forget what, I think it was a skua or something like that. Maybe it was but I'm pretty sure that the Russian bombers came in very early. Ground attack aircraft came in very early, and I believe that I labeled it, okay, I'm flying ground attack aircraft, watch how badly I mess this up. And I did. I made a first class idiot out of myself. It's a tough road to hoe. It's got better as the game has slowly morphed, and at this point I'm going to put in a disclaimer too. I've had people who looked at some of my early videos and now realize I'm approaching 500 videos out there, folks. And said, well, you said back then. Well, you look at the course of this game over the time that's being spent, and I can't believe how much this game has changed. And it will continue to morph. You know, the guys that have played World of Warplanes before that, and I've talked to some of the GWSS guys. Who have been here since the beta of this 4 years ago and the 1.0 version of the game. And, you know, the changes they described to me are kind of staggering. So, you'll hear the word tossed around on the other channels about meta. And meta is a concept of the game and how it's played to the most advantageous way at any given point of time. And I've been noticing that it's been shifting over to the ground attack aircraft for a while. And before you bemoan fate, that's due for that will shift too. I mean, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't. May happen, you know, 6 months from now, 8 months from now, 2 years from now, but sooner or later that's going to change. I noticed that ground attack has gotten much more difficult too. Now, the AA guns are something you really got to look out for. The air defense aircraft are much tougher than they used to be. You know, these are relatively recent changes that have happened in the last 4 months. There was a time when I had no compunction if there were, you know, 3 ground attack aircraft in me, I would just dive right in the middle of it. I didn't care. I knew I was going to win. Now it might be just a little bit tougher. So something to think about. There are times I put developer blog posts up here on the channel to keep you all informed, but you need to be reading this stuff on the forum. So you have a heads up on which way to go. Alright, now again, you'll notice that the rear gun on this has a better sweep than the 1102, as I referred to. It's also, you know, these, you notice I'm holding on to the rockets. Because 3 rockets is enough to take out just about anything. One particular item. And that's worth me holding on to.
Our military base is launching strikes on the enemy.
Stuff to take out any AA site. And that's important. Okay, so when I talk about 8 rockets on there, it's one hell of a load of explosive. And it's equivalent in its entirety, in my opinion, to one of those 1,000-pound bombs, 1,100-pound bombs. 550 kilograms is actually what they're measuring. And 2.2 kilograms, or 2.2 pounds to the kilogram. Now again, you know, there's me using the IL-40P in a ground attack role. All right, the gun is a little flatter shooting than the front guns on the 1102B. And that's to its advantage. Doesn't hit quite as hard, spitting out an awful lot of rounds. And these, there's only 4 guns in this, by the way. The Soviets were working with the revolver cannon when they got the 213C off Mauser's bench like we did. But they were already having a lot of success. And the AM series of cannon were 1,100 rounds apiece, RPM. So they didn't feel nearly the rush of, oh, we got to have this because it's so much better than anything we got. They already had aircraft that were almost as good, or guns are almost as good as what the Germans were working on and wasn't going to be ready for 6 years. Different animal.
We have control of all airfields in this area. Tactical superiority achieved.
J7W3. And Airmutt's flying a really good pilot. And there I'm coming in, and I'm after the rocket base. No, actually, I'm really after the ground attack aircraft because I see it. He hasn't seen me. He's not paying any attention to me. And I come over here and I ambush him. Somebody else gets them, I'm just fine with that. Now I can get back to the rocket base. Or not. I didn't remember, I never told you that IL-40P can't go play anti-GA. You've seen too many of my videos to know that it darn sure can be. Kind of a measure of who sticks up on who. Because you very rarely get around in time to get the advantage. And if you put these two in a turning circle, the 1102 should win every time. Unless somebody's done a really stupid build in their IL-40P. Now that was Airmutt who shot me down. Had an opportunity to repay the favor, and by God I did. Now you notice I've almost got this base back, thanks to some earlier work by another attack aircraft, and I take out that AA with 3 rockets.
There's a heavy storm here. Unable to proceed.
Okay, we got it back.
Do you copy? Way to go. Victory is close. We are losing the military base. There are too many enemy aircraft.
Guess who's back to repay the favor? I actually worked against a couple of aircraft there, but that was Airmutt saying, yes, I've got the fighter, you got the bomber, you're going to lose that every time. Yeah, he's right. but we're still going to win. So I wanted to put this together to tell you more than anything else that, yeah, they're both good aircraft. And you can take your own conclusion from this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm not always the guy that's right. And when the thing's over, you've saw this, you've weighed, you know, your opinions, your thoughts, your experiences with the aircraft, put them down. Like I said, I may not be right. Maybe I'm drawing the wrong conclusions. Well, other people want to hear that. Bucko came in on my F-86 video and put down a very long entry on his thoughts on the machine guns and pointed out things that I was doing wrong. Now the guy's been in the game 4 years. He ought to know something, right? He's a very respected pilot, and I think one of the best out there. And the things he pointed out was, you know, opening fire at 2,000 feet with the M2 machine gun isn't going to work out real well. Can't work out real well. Because so much of the fire disperses from the machine guns. So you're lucky if you're getting 10%. All right, so let's go and we'll do some confirmation on what I was thinking. And I'll show you some screens here. But essentially the things to walk away from this is the differences in the aircraft. DPS is going to be right at just over 1,000 on this. The survivability, you're talking 2,800 points over 1,800 points. Airspeed, you got a good 50-mile-an-hour difference between these two aircraft. Maneuverability, this thing has just about a 2-second advantage in turn time, 1.5 seconds anyway. All right, your rockets, you don't get any rockets with this. You get 8 rockets with the other and the big GRPs. And so you can see the difference there. You're just over 1,000. And here you're at 1,400. It makes a difference. Folks, I want you to like the video, subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, you can just hit the little water mark on the bottom right-hand side, and you can donate at the Patreon page. Thank you. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.